Do you find it a very daunting experience that yesterday you were a nanny looking after children, now you're about to marry the Prince of Wales, and one day you would, in all likelihood, be Queen? It's a tremendous change for someone, if I may say, of 19 to make all of a sudden, the transition.
It is, but I've had a small run up to it all in the last 6 months. And next to Prince Charles, I know I can't go wrong. He's there with me.
The tragic death of Princess Diana in Paris on August 31st, 1997, generated an intense outpouring of grief.
I feel like everyone else in this country today, utterly devastated.
It's just like a bad dream, you know.
Millions of people said they identified with her quest for happiness and her sense of altruism. To this day, many of us still look at Diana as one of the greatest figures of the 20th century.
Her involvement in the royal family boosted the royal family's popularity, lifted the royal family.
She's been a great ambassador to this country, and there will never be anyone like her again.
Her wedding to the Prince of Wales on July the 29th, 1981, reached a global audience of over 750 million.
It was the wedding of the century, and she arrived in style.
Diana inspired insurmountable feelings of magnitude, and although she is no longer here, her charitable legacy is honoured and carried on by her two sons, William and Harry.
I think what's so amazing is how William and Prince Harry have been determined to continue her legacy. Prince Harry said when he was 18 that he promised he would continue the legacy of his mother's work.
The biggest impact that you can have as an individual is within your own community. Sometimes the smallest of things, like helping someone cross the road, to help someone climb a flight of stairs, or help someone lift their shopping into the back of their car. It really makes a difference. It doesn't cost a thing, just a little bit of your time.
Diana was, and still is, loved and admired on a global scale. Follow our journey through her remarkable life as we pay tribute to the people's one and only princess. Princess Diana was an iconic figure of the late 20th century. During her life, she was often said to be the most photographed person on the planet. She epitomised feminine beauty and glamour. At the same time, she was admired for her groundbreaking charity work, in particular her work with AIDS patients and supporting the campaign for banning landmines.
Surprised at the political furore that developed as a result of your visit to England?
I saw it merely as a distraction because I'm not a political figure. I am a humanitarian figure, and always have been and always will be.
I gave Princess Diana an anti-personnel mine, which I hope she keeps on her desk to remind her every day that people are actually risking their lives to try and do something about this problem. And indeed, worldwide, people are actually standing on mines and either being killed or being very seriously injured.
It's been a very intense 4 days. I have seen a great deal. I've seen the people affected by landmines. I've seen the landmines themselves. Angola is an example of what the Red Cross can achieve around the world, given the sort of cooperation that we have seen that exists between the Red Cross and the NGOs and the Angolan authorities.
Princess Diana was in the spotlight at all times. Despite problems with so much attention, she tried to use this publicity for good, and through doing so, endeared herself to the public through her warmth and caring.
It's almost impossible to describe to a stranger or someone who's never met Princess Diana what she was really like. What I usually say is she was as beautiful inside as she was out. But to meet her was something special. She lit up a room, she stopped traffic, and when she entered into a room, everything stopped, and all eyes were on her. I've never met another human being who had that aura, who had that charisma, the same as Princess Diana.
Diana, Princess of Wales, was born into an aristocratic family with links to the royal family on July the 1st, 1961. She was the fourth of 5 children of John Spencer and his first wife, Frances Spencer. The Spencer family had been closely allied with the royal family for several generations.
She was constantly rubbing shoulders with royalty because she had, her childhood was based in part up in Sandringham, so she was often on the estate with the royals, and she was essentially circulating in those sort of quite high society circles.
Diana was 8 when her parents divorced, with her father winning a bitter battle for custody of the children.
She, throughout her whole life, was looking for a happy family. From the age of 6, when Diana's mother walked out and she stood at the gate and saw her disappear, her whole life was dedicated to finding again the happiness of the family that she lost.
So she came from a broken home, and I think perhaps there was an insecurity that a seed was sown from a young age, and that insecurity was something that flourished actually within her as she got older.
Diana lived with her mother in London during her parents' separation. After her father won custody, Diana then moved into her father's ancestral home at Althorpe. Diana later became known as Lady Diana after her father later inherited the title of Earl Spencer in 1975. Diana was often noted for her shyness while growing up, but she did take an interest in both music and dancing, training in classical ballet.
I mean, she used to like to dance, and she was very fond of swimming. She was always up and down to the swimming pool. She danced in the main hall and played the piano. No, she never ever said what she wanted to do. The only time I ever heard her say anything was just in fun. At her sister's wedding, she said, "My wedding will be at Westminster Abbey." And she was 18 then, I should think. But we always thought she'd be Prince Andrew.
As a youngster, Diana was sent to Riddlesworth Hall School, an all-girls boarding school. She did not shine academically and was moved to West Heath Girls' School in Kent, where she was regarded as a poor student, having attempted and failed all of her O-levels twice. Around this time, she became reacquainted with her future husband, who was in a romantic relationship with her older sister Sarah at the time.
Her older sister had been cherry-picked as a potential suitor for Prince Charles, and had in fact dated. Sarah and Charles did date, but it was Diana who caught Prince Charles's eye.
And they had a little bit of a rapport. Obviously, she was considerably younger than him and quite a naive, I think, shy 16-year-old when they first kind of clocked eyes on each other.
Can you take us back to when you first met? If you can remember. Can you remember when you first met?
Yes, certainly can. It was 1977. Charles came to stay as a friend of my sister Sarah's for a shoot. We sort of met in a ploughed field.
Slightly previous to that, but anyway. And what did you think then? What was your instant impression, both of you? What did you think about Lady Diana then?
Well, I remember thinking what a very jolly and amusing and attractive 16-year-old she was. And, I mean, great fun and bouncy and full of life and everything. And I don't know what you thought of me. But...
Pretty amazing.
Diana moved to London in 1978 and lived in a flat owned by her mother. Soon after she moved to London, her mother bought her an apartment in Earl's Court for £100,000 as an 18th birthday present. Diana was working as a kindergarten assistant at the Young England Kindergarten when she became famous in the autumn of 1980 as the new girlfriend of Prince Charles. Prince Charles was in his early 30s and was under increasing pressure from the royal family to marry. The Prince of Wales had known Lady Diana since her childhood and first took an interest in her as a potential bride during the summer of 1980, when they were guests at a country weekend where she watched him play polo. The relationship developed as he invited her for a sailing weekend to Cowes aboard the royal yacht HMY Britannia. It was followed by an invitation in November 1980 to Balmoral to spend time with his family.
I'll never forget the day I met Lady Diana Spencer. It was at Balmoral Castle. We were expecting weekend house guests, and this shy young girl arrived at the front door with one suitcase. I showed her to her room, and she said, "You wouldn't stay for a while and have a chat, would you?" I'm completely out of my depth. I've no idea why I'm here, and can you tell me and walk me through the protocol of what's going to happen during my stay? So for over an hour, I talked her through the routine of what to call the Queen, when to curtsy, what to ask for at drinks time, where to sit in the dining room, and the general protocol of a royal household. And I don't think she ever forgot that first meeting. She was 18 years old. I was 21.
Lady Diana was well received by the Queen and Prince Philip. The couple subsequently continued their courtship in London. Prince Charles proposed on February 6, 1981, and Lady Diana accepted, but their engagement was kept secret for the following weeks while she vacationed in Australia with her mother.
What about the proposal, Your Royal Highness? How did that come about?
Well, I asked Diana before she went to Australia, 2 or 3 days before, because I thought it'd be a good idea that, apart from anything else, if she went to Australia, she could then think about it, and if she didn't like the idea, she could say she didn't, or if she did, she could say that. But in fact, you actually said
Yes, quite
yes,
promptly.
Before you went to Australia?
Yes.
And they were to sit on it for 3 weeks.
Must have been an agonising 3 weeks. Did you speak at all? I mean, the phone lines must have been pretty busy between here and Australia.
Yes, we tried, but it was quite difficult because I think there was a certain amount of press interest there, although they never actually found you, did they?
No.
But I rang up on one occasion and I said, "Can I speak?" And they said, "No, we're not taking any calls." So I said, "Well, is the Prince of Wales speaking?" "How do I know it's the Prince of Wales?" came back a reply. So I said, "Well, you don't, but I am," in a sort of rage. And I mean, eventually I got the number because they were staying somewhere else. But they said, "Oh, the phones are tapped," or something, which I found highly unlikely.
And when did you tell the Queen that this was what you wanted to do?
Well, about 3 weeks ago. So, as I say, we've had to sit on it and hide it for 3 weeks, which hasn't been all that easy. But I was absolutely determined that it was going to be as near a secret as possible on the actual day. That was my ambition.
But you're both obviously excited, but it must have been awfully difficult trying to keep that secret, actually.
Yes.
Very good for us.
And very good for
good practice.
Yes.
And good for the people we told, too. Quite interesting to see who can keep secrets.
But it did pop up in the Times this morning.
Their engagement became official on February the 24th, 1981, after Lady Diana selected a large engagement ring consisting of 14 solitaire diamonds.
Did you find it a very hard decision, Lady Diana?
I had a long time to think about it, because I knew the pressure was on both of us. And well, it wasn't a difficult decision in the end. It's what I wanted. It's what I want. And I
You haven't seen the ring. Maybe have a look at your...
Yes. Wonderful sapphire and diamond.
When were you given that? Just last night? Or?
No, Sunday.
But not wearing it yesterday?
No,
keeping it hidden?
pretty hidden.
And when did you
decide that this was the right lady for you? I mean,
well, gradually. And I suppose towards the end of the summer and the autumn last year, and I began to realise, what was going on in my mind and hers in particular, and all these things help. But, it was a gradual business.
Following the engagement, Lady Diana left her job at the kindergarten and moved to Clarence House, then home with the Queen Mother, for a few days.
You miss looking after the children?
Yes.
Well, they'll certainly miss you, won't they?
I hope so.
Have you been to see them at all?
No, I haven't been yet, no. I think that'd be
a bit of a giveaway.
Well, I mean, the moment you appear anywhere, then people automatically jump to conclusions.
Yes.
Diana lived at Buckingham Palace for most of the pre-wedding period.
Are you planning for you must be planning for the future, where you're going to live and this sort of thing?
Oh, yes. I mean, I've got this house in Gloucestershire, which I acquired last year.
With marriage in mind?
No, not really. I mean, I did want somewhere very much as a base, and I wanted somewhere which was nearer to the Duchy of Cornwall areas that I could reach then and visit people and look at the farms and things. And so that was very convenient. But obviously, it's been a great help. There's a lot to be done. It's going to be marvellous to have somebody to help sort it out.
As Lady Diana's father described her this morning as, he said he thought she'd make a very good housewife.
Oh, it's nice when you said that.
We've yet to see.
Twenty-year-old Diana Spencer became Princess of Wales when she married Prince Charles on July the 29th, 1981, at St Paul's Cathedral. It was widely billed as a fairy tale wedding, watched by a global audience of 750 million, while 600,000 people lined the streets to catch a glimpse of Diana en route to the ceremony.
Did you see the royal wedding? It was the most watched event in human history to that point. More people watched that than Man Landing on the Moon, which had been the most popular before that. You saw that creased dress. You saw that romantic lace. You saw that over-the-top romantic wedding. It was the wedding of the century. And she arrived in style.
I, Diana Frances.
Take thee, Charles Philip Arthur George.
Take thee, Charles Philip Arthur George.
To my wedded husband.
To my wedded husband.
Just as Charles fell immediately in love with Princess Diana, or Lady Diana Spencer as she was at the time, so too did Britain. We hadn't seen the likes of a future princess like this for many, many years, and Diana was just a stunner. The innocence about her, you just thought, wow, this girl is a knockout. Everyone around the world, pretty much, tuned into the royal wedding. I mean, that was a huge event in '81. The fairy tale dress, the golden carriage, the beautiful ceremony at St Paul's, the blushing bride, the proud prince. It just ticked all the boxes. It was the fairy tale wedding.
After becoming Princess of Wales, Diana automatically acquired the rank as the third highest female in the United Kingdom order of precedence. After the wedding, the couple made their official residence at Kensington Palace. On November the 5th, 1981, the princess's first pregnancy was officially announced. In the private Lindo wing of St Mary's Hospital in London, on June the 21st, 1982, the princess gave birth to her and Prince Charles's first son and heir, William Arthur Philip Louis.
Obviously, when Prince William was born and it was a future king and the future of the monarchy is assured in at that point, a man's hands, which is significant because the law at the time suggested that if you had a daughter first but a younger son, the son would overtake the daughter and become king. So to have a son first was obviously a perfect scenario when it comes to thinking about planning the line of succession.
Amidst some media criticism, she decided to take William, still a baby, on her first major tours of Australia and New Zealand, but the decision was popularly applauded. By her own admission, the Princess of Wales had not initially intended to take William until it was suggested by Malcolm Fraser, the Australian Prime Minister at the time. Her second son, Henry Charles Albert David, was born 2 years after William on September the 15th, 1984.
I remember saying to Princess Diana on one occasion when her son was getting taller and taller, I said, "You've bred some height into the royal family." And she said, "Yes, and good looks, and good looks." And what she was talking about was the introduction of her family, the Spencers, into a very tight royal gene pool. And the result was 2 good-looking sons.
Just ever dig at the baldness.
It's what, sorry?
Baldness.
There's baldness, no, I was with you on that one.
It's pretty rich coming from a ginger, so I'm quite happy to tell them on this one. Yeah. Peter's a good-looking ginger, it's all right.
Peter's both.
I've known those 2 boys, William and Harry, since they were born. I've always been there, and I've watched them grow. I'm very proud of them. But the public must know William, although he looks like his mother, is more like his father. He's studious, he's very careful, he's very respectful, he's duty-bound. Harry, on the other hand, is a hybrid of the Spencers' red hair and the Windsors, but he has his mother's naughty streak. Harry is the fun guy. Harry was always the soldier, William was always the general. So when my 2 boys visited and they played war games, William had an army that he could direct. He was always the leader. That was his role from the moment he was born.
Diana wanted her sons to have wider experiences than are usual for royal children. She took them to Disney World and McDonald's, as well as AIDS clinics and shelters for the homeless. She bought them typical teenage items such as video games. Even her harshest critics agree that the princess was a devoted, imaginative and demonstrative mother. She rarely deferred to the prince or to the royal family, and was often stubborn when it came to the children. She chose their first given names, dismissed a royal family nanny, and engaged one of her own choosing, selected their schools and clothing, planned their outings and took them to school herself as often as her schedule permitted. She also negotiated her public duties around their timetables. Diana was breaking the mould when it came to motherhood in the royal family.
What you have to remember is that William and Harry are Diana's sons primarily. Yes, of course, they're Charles's sons as well, but Charles was never there. Diana was always there. She fed them. She was there at meal times. She changed their nappies. She was there at bath time. She read them bedtime stories. She fetched them from school. Charles didn't. Diana instilled in those 2 boys her hopes, her dreams, and her ideals. And she loved nothing more than cuddling up with her 2 boys, watching TV, and watching game shows and soap operas. And the boys were the centre of her world.
As the watching world looked on at what appeared to be a fairy tale marriage, all was not well within the Waleses' household. It was becoming evident that Princess Diana was not prepared for royal life. Her and Charles's relationship was becoming strained, and their marriage appeared to be on a slippery slope.
I think she felt isolated, and I don't think that the palace were prepared for someone who perhaps didn't have that royal training to marry into the royal family and to become a future queen. She was the Princess of Wales, she became famous overnight, and she didn't really have the tools to equip her for such immediate stardom. If you look at how the palace helped integrate Kate Middleton, as she was then, into the royal family over that decade-long courtship, Kate was trained to deal with the paparazzi. She was trained not to speak to the press. You know, she had a lot of hand-holding and she had an incredible mentor in William. I don't think Charles gave Diana the guidance that she needed, and I certainly don't think the courtiers at the palace did. She was really left to sink or swim.
Well, I think Princess Diana, like the rest of the world, was caught up in the fairy tale that was her own royal relationship, and She was willing it to work, as was everyone else. I think very quickly the reality set in that she didn't have much in common with Prince Charles, and actually they were very different people with very different interests, and that's when the cracks started appearing.
I saw the relationship with Prince Charles develop. Remember, she was a shy, naive young girl and didn't know why she was really involved with the royal family. She soon found out. She was there, quite honestly, to provide Prince Charles with an heir and a spare. And if you watch that early footage of that interview in which someone asks Prince Charles, "Are you in love, sir?" and he says, "Oh, whatever love is," look at the princess's face, because she looks at him in somewhat sort of surprise.
Difficult to find the right sort of word, isn't it, really? Just delighted and happy. And I'm amazed that she's been brave enough to take me on.
And I suppose in love.
Of course.
Whatever in love means.
The princess made a fatal mistake. She fell in love with her prince.
Within 5 years, the couple's incompatibility and age difference, as well as Diana's concerns about Charles's previous girlfriend, Camilla Parker Bowles, became visible and damaging to their marriage. Beginning in the late 1980s, the marriage of the Prince and Princess of Wales fell apart, an event sensationalised by the world's media. Both the Princess and the Prince allegedly spoke to the press through friends, each blaming the other for the marriage's demise. One thing was clear: Charles was jealous of Diana's popularity.
I did see on many occasions him undermine her. At a strategic time and at place, just before leaving for a public engagement, just before meeting the British ambassador, he was there saying, "Oh, you look awful. Oh, why did you wear that? Oh, you look like you belong in the mafia." So, in a way, Prince Charles did abuse her mentally. And she'd say to me, "Well, why does he do that?" And I said, "Well, because you're more popular than he is. And because he's jealous of your popularity. Because when you go out with him, they only want to see you. They don't want to see him. And he can't bear that."
Meanwhile, rumours started to circulate in the press about the couple's infidelity. The Prince of Wales resumed his affair with his married former girlfriend, Camilla Parker Bowles. And later, the Princess of Wales began a relationship with James Hewitt, a former household cavalry officer in the British Army.
James Hewitt was a nice man. He was a kind man. I knew him. Even in those early days, I was a go-between between James Hewitt and the princess. I didn't realise that was going to be my life role, to be a go-between between her and every other love interest in her life. But I was the one she trusted. No one else knew of this relationship, and I would ferry him to and from Highgrove from Kemble railway station in the back of my car and take him back to the train station when they'd had tea or he'd spent the night. But this was a real big secret. The other big secret I was keeping was, of course, Prince Charles was seeing Camilla Parker Bowles. No one knew. The world didn't know at that stage. And so I was keeping both sides of the family happy, being the butler at Highgrove, looking after the house, and looking after two mistresses. Not easy.
In December 1992, Prime Minister John Major announced the Wales's amicable separation to the House of Commons.
The Prince and Princess of Wales are to separate. Buckingham Palace said the decision was reached amicably and the couple have no plans for divorce. The palace said no third parties are involved.
The Prince of Wales sought public understanding via a televised interview on June the 29th, 1994. In this, he confirmed his own extramarital affair with Camilla Parker Bowles, saying that he rekindled their association in 1986, only after his marriage to the princess had become irretrievably broken down.
Well, and the trouble is, you see, that these things, again, as I was saying earlier, are so personal. It's difficult to know quite how to, to talk about these things in in front of everybody, and obviously I don't think many people would want to. But I mean, all I can say is that there's been so much speculation, feeding on every other kind of speculation, that it all becomes bigger and bigger. I mean, all I can say is that I mean, there is no truth in so much of this speculation. And Mrs. Parker Bowles is a great friend of mine. I have a large number of friends. I'm terribly lucky to have so many friends who I think are wonderful and make the whole difference to my life, which would become intolerable otherwise. And she has been a friend for a very long time, and along with a lot of other friends, and will continue to be a friend for a very long time. And I think also most people probably would realize that when marriages break down, awful and miserable as that is, that so often, you know, that it is your friends who are the most important and helpful and understanding and encouraging. Otherwise, you would go start raving mad. And that's what friends are for.
Diana was interviewed for the BBC current affairs show Panorama by journalist Martin Bashir. The interview was broadcast on November the 20th, 1995. In the interview, Diana opened up about many aspects of her personal life, especially her failed marriage to Prince Charles.
Completely unprecedented, a total shock to the royal family and to William and Harry as well. I don't think anyone was prepared for this bombshell of an interview. Diana sat down, gave this interview and talked about there being 3 in the marriage. She talked about her husband's infidelity with Camilla Parker Bowles. She talked about her own infidelity. I mean, she opened up the book in a way that no one had before. The royal family saw it as hanging her dirty laundry in public. They were furious. Charles was livid, sent his own courtiers into a damage limitation, which then backfired. And of course, caught in this very ugly crossfire were 2 little boys, William, who was at Eton at the time, who had to deal with the taunts and the other children having seen this interview, mocking his mother and her doe eyes as she was talking to Martin Bashir. Very, very difficult for both of them. Harry was more sheltered. He was still at Ludgrove at the time. And I remember the headmaster there making sure that newspapers were banned. They were out the way. No one could watch that interview. It was his way of protecting Harry. I think at Eton, it was much harder to do that. William was exposed to everything, and he called his mother in a fury and a rage. I remember speaking to Simone Simmons, who was one of Diana's closest friends, who recalled that it was actually the rare and only time, I believe, when William turned on his mother, according to Simone, and said that he would never forgive Diana for what she'd done.
I think she's told her side of the story, and she's actually said it herself rather than it being written down. It actually come from her own mouth. So, you know, it's got to be the truth, hasn't it?
I suppose she'll get quite a lot of support from it. She does come across as if she's been done wrong by the prince.
Well, I think she's been honest, but I think maybe it's a bit of an act to get the public on her side. She's acting very timid and things. I think she should have been a lot stronger.
She needed to do something. She needed to put her side of the story for us to hear. You know, I think it's right that she's done it.
On December the 20th, 1995, Buckingham Palace publicly announced the Queen had sent letters to the Prince and Princess of Wales advising them to divorce. The Queen's move was backed by the Prime Minister and by senior Privy Councillors and, according to the BBC, was decided after 2 weeks of talks. Prince Charles formally agreed to divorce in a written statement soon after. In February 1996, the Princess announced her agreement after negotiations with the Prince and representatives of the Queen, irritating Buckingham Palace by issuing her own announcement of divorce agreement and its terms. The divorce was finalised on August the 28th, 1996.
I think the Princess was relieved after the divorce came through, and certainly after the settlement came through, because I remember her coming through the front door saying, "I'm a very rich lady now. I've just secured £14 million in my divorce settlement." Now, today that doesn't seem like a lot of money for the future mother of the King of England, but in those days it seemed like an awful lot of money. "And the first thing I'm going to do," she said, "is double your wage."
Days before the decree absolute of divorce, letters patent were issued with general rules to regulate royal titles after divorce. In accordance, as she was no longer married to the Prince of Wales, Diana lost the style, Her Royal Highness, and instead was styled Diana, Princess of Wales. As the mother of the prince, expected to one day ascend the thrones, she was accorded the same precedence she enjoyed during her marriage.
She was no longer Her Royal Highness. She was just Diana, Princess of Wales. But as she cried that night, her title was taken away. She cried. She said, "People won't respect me anymore." I said, "I don't know where you're coming from, because you were born a lady. That's your title. You're still a princess. And one day your son will be king. So you're still in pole position. Don't think titles make people, because they don't." We taught common sense. And she felt better after that. But this newfound freedom would take her into some very strange places.
After the divorce, Diana retained her double apartment on the north side of Kensington Palace, which she had shared with the Princess of Wales since the first year of their marriage. Diana dated the respected British Pakistani heart surgeon Hasnaat Khan.
I remember the day the princess met Hasnaat Khan. She came back from the hospital, having visited children on the ward, and she said, "The most astonishing things happened to me today." She said, "I was going up in the elevator and somebody put their foot into the elevator door as it was closing, and it opened again. And there he was." And she said, I knew I would have a relationship with him.
In May 1996, Diana visited Lahore upon invitation of Imran Khan, a relative of Hasnaat Khan, and she also visited Hasnaat's family in secret. Khan was intensely private, and the relationship was conducted in secrecy, with Diana lying to members of the press who questioned her about it.
2 years, no one knew about him. Again, I was the go-between. I would bring him into the palace. I'd ask chef to cook dinner for 2. And in the morning, I'd take him back in the boot of my car to the hospital. So the police never saw him. The chefs never saw him. The maids never saw him. No one saw him. Just me. And in the end, their relationship finished in a shouting match on Wandsworth Common. And they were shouting at each other because the princess wanted Hasnaat to come out, to declare his love, to be in public with her. There isn't one picture of Hasnaat and the princess because he was so careful not to let his world collide with hers. But how could that be? How could they coexist in the same room, in the same world? A surgeon and a princess. It just didn't seem right.
Within a month of breaking up with Khan, Diana had begun seeing Dodi Fayed, son of Egyptian billionaire Mohammed Al Fayed. Diana had considered taking her sons that summer on a holiday to the Hamptons on Long Island, New York. The security officials had prevented it. After deciding against a trip to Thailand, she accepted Fayed's invitation to join his family in the south of France. Mohammed Al Fayed bought a multi-million-pound yacht, the Jonical, a 60-metre yacht on which to entertain Diana and her sons.
What attracted Diana, Princess of Wales, to Dodi Al-Fayed was that she, throughout her whole life, was looking for a happy family. And for that reason, I think Diana, Princess of Wales, who found and saw happiness on holiday with the Fayed family, and they laughed from morning, noon till night. Diana was bent over sometimes with humor, and she suddenly realized what it would be like to be within a happy family, unlike the royal family, the British royal family, in which she had lived for 15 years and very unhappily. And suddenly her sons, William and Harry, saw her and saw themselves in a happy family environment.
I don't know how she'll find a husband, but I always imagined she'd end up with someone older, very powerful and rich, perhaps a sort of Onassis type figure that really could look after her and whisk her away from everything in the same way that Onassis did for Jacqueline Kennedy.
She was looking for her Aristotle Onassis. You see, she always thought that she was as kind of Jackie Kennedy, that had lost her mainstay in life and still needed someone to take care of her and protect her, keep her safe. And in a way, Dodi Al-Fayed was a kind of Aristotle Onassis. He was heir to a fortune, had an airplane and a boat, and was able to take the princess around the world in a safety corridor. And that's what thrilled her in a way, that for once in her life she'd found someone that could treat her in the way which she'd become accustomed and the way that her lifestyle had always been.
It all seemed to be going so well for Diana. She was in love with a man who could provide for her a life she wanted and needed. However, without the aid of royal security at her side, she ran the risk of being exposed.
The problem with becoming so independent and not having to be part of the royal family was that you're let loose. Because they let go of her and abandoned her, she was let loose in a strange world that was dangerous. Although she was able to do whatever she wanted, she wasn't protected.
We are now being told that Diana, Princess of Wales, who was reported to be injured in that accident you've just seen pictured of, has actually died in Paris's Salpêtrière hospital. A French minister has confirmed the death of the Princess of Wales after a car crash which also killed her friend, the Halidaire Dodi Fayed. Her driver was also killed in that incident. They were reportedly being pursued by paparazzi on 2 motorcycles. Just to confirm, Diana, Princess of Wales, is reported by a French cabinet minister to have died in Paris's Salpêtrière hospital. There is no other confirmation, but we have from a French minister a quote on French radio that Diana, Princess of Wales, has been killed in a car crash. The Press Association are also quoting British sources which confirm that the Princess of Wales has been killed in a car accident in Paris.
In a way, in my head, my duty said, you better get there as quick as possible to take care of everything. So I forgot my grief for the moment and concentrated on my duty. And my duty was protect her in death the way I had in life. It was a very warm night in Paris. The windows were open. There was a fan on the bedside table, and I could see the princess lying in a bed. And as I approached her bed, the grief kicked in. The emotion started to rise inside me, and I couldn't contain it. And I was devastated. And I realized that she was gone. She's always in my dreams. And she will be with me for the rest of my life.
I feel like everyone else in this country today, utterly devastated. Our thoughts and prayers are with Princess Diana's family, in particular her two sons, the two boys. Our hearts go out to them. We are today a nation in Britain in a state of shock, in mourning, in grief that is so deeply painful for us.
Sorrow. Just sorrow and wish we'd told before we loved her.
Just can't believe she's gone.
It's just like a bad dream, you know.
She was a wonderful and a warm human being. The people everywhere, not just here in Britain, everywhere, they kept faith with Princess Diana. They liked her, they loved her. They regarded her as one of the people. She was the people's princess. And that's how she will stay, how she will remain in our hearts and in our memories forever.
The most wonderful thing of all was that when Lord Spencer, her brother, finished his address, it came to an end and there was silence, as there is at a funeral or at a memorial service. And suddenly, with those of us in the Abbey, heard outside, way away, applause. And the applause seemed to move to the Abbey door until the whole congregation in Westminster Abbey applauded what Earl Spencer had to say.
First, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself. She was an exceptional and gifted human being. In good times and bad, she never lost her capacity to smile and laugh, nor to inspire others with her warmth and kindness. I admired and respected her for her energy and commitment to others, and especially for her devotion to her two boys. This week at Balmoral, we have all been trying to help William and Harry come to terms with the devastating loss that they and the rest of us have suffered. No one who knew Diana will ever forget her. Millions of others who never met her, but felt they knew her, will remember her. I, for one, believe there are lessons to be drawn from her life and from the extraordinary and moving reaction to her death. I share in your determination to cherish her memory.
You know, just can't believe it. Still can't believe it. Because they talk about her being dead, and then you see her alive on the television. You still can't believe it. Well, I mean, this is the family grave. This is the family grave, and her father's here, and her father doted on her, and she was really fond of her father, So I think it's only right she should be.
You know, I remember the day William and Harry came back to Kensington Palace after their mother died. I remember standing in the hallway and William walked in and shook my hand and asked me if I was all right. I said, I'm fine, thank you. Harry ran down the corridor, flung his arms around me and broke his heart. I still remember his tears wet my shirt through. He was broken-hearted. And I think that it affected Harry more than it affected William.
And it had been the dawning of a new era, I think, for Diana, in that she had been repackaged and she was going to go out and do her thing for landmines and her other causes. And I think that's what's most tragic about it. She was almost starting the next chapter of her life.
The sudden and unexpected death of Princess Diana on August 31st, 1997, sent shockwaves around the world. An 18-month French judicial investigation concluded in 1999 that the crash was caused by Henri Paul, who lost control at high speed while intoxicated. Furthermore, an inquest headed by Lord Justice Scott Baker into the death of Princess Diana began at the Royal Courts of Justice, London, on October 2nd, 2007, a continuation of the inquest that began in 2004. On April 7th, 2008, the jury concluded, much like the French investigation, that Princess Diana was a victim of an unlawful killing by the grossly negligent driving of the chauffeur Henri Paul. Despite no longer being with us, Princess Diana's presence is still being felt within the 21st century.
I think what's so amazing is how William and Kate, to her credit, have been determined to continue her legacy, and Prince Harry as well. Let's not forget all the amazing charity work that he's done. Prince Harry said when he was 18 that he promised he would continue the legacy of his mother's work, and he's done that through the incredible work he does.
And for you, and in this way, the biggest impact that you can have as an individual is within your own community. Sometimes the smallest of things, like helping someone cross the road, to help someone climb a flight of stairs, or help someone lift their shopping into the back of their car. It really makes a difference. It doesn't cost a thing, just a little bit of your time. Often without realizing it, those we admire most are people who are committed to helping others, to giving their time freely to another, to volunteering like you guys. Every one of you here has inspired others by what you have done, what you are doing, so please don't stop. If young people at risk can be identified early on, then supported and mentored by someone who has grown up in the same community or had similar life experiences, then it is possible to avoid them going on a downward spiral. The mentors I'm talking about, they're not superhuman. They are people like you and I who are willing to spend a little time helping someone else. Every one of you here is already doing great things, like the hundreds of Diana Award winners, or the pupils from St Peter's London Docks Primary School who are here. However, it's important to encourage your friends to get involved as well, because we all know how valuable help and support from our friends can be. But multiply this, what's going on today, by thousands of times, then you can see that by coming together, you can change your communities and beyond.
Kate is doing it by wearing that ring every single day, by naming her daughter the third name after Diana. William as well encompassing Diana in so many ways, and the fact that he chose the apartment at Kensington Palace. I think all of these things are very deliberate moves to keep Diana's memory alive.
It has been William and Harry who, to be fair, at the 10th anniversary of her death said, can we just put her to rest and let her rest in peace now and not dredge up all of these theories and stories of the past. But in the other breath, I think both of those princes are saying, look, we will, through our charitable efforts, continue what our mother started, and that was essentially to use our royal role for good. They could do nothing, they choose to do something. Both of them have chosen patronages which have reflected their mother's work. Say, for instance, Prince William with Centrepoint, the homelessness charity, which is both of his parents were involved in, and the Royal Marsden, which his mother was patron of, for instance, cancer charity for children. Equally, you've had Harry going out to Africa, helping AIDS orphans in Lesotho. Obviously, his mother was synonymous with AIDS. And indeed, I think we see through Harry Diana's common touch, his ability to just relate to people onto a level, which is what's made him so popular. But in people's memories, people, I think, still reflect very fondly on Diana for the person she was, for her vulnerability, but first and foremost for her charitable efforts.
Yes, she was the people's princess, the Princess of Wales, but she was William and Harry's mother, and I don't think they ever want her to be forgotten. And actually, it's quite astonishing that there is no permanent memorial to Princess Diana in this country. There is a fountain in Kensington Palace, but there's no statue, and there's no Diana Memorial Day. And I think, therefore, it has fallen to William and Harry to do everything in their power, be it a concert for Diana, be it naming their daughter after Diana, to make sure that she lives on.
From her engagement to the Prince of Wales in 1981 until her death in 1997, Diana was a major presence on the world stage, often described as the world's most photographed woman. She was noted for her compassion, style, charisma, and high-profile charity work. At a time when the royal family's popularity was at a low, Diana came to enhance the image of the royals, and in doing so, she became a true legend of her time.
She came to us at a romantic, new, fresh time into the royal family. She came to save it in a way. Then the children came along. There was nothing like Diana. There was Diana mania everywhere. Everybody wanted to see Princess Diana. She was so popular. Her involvement in the royal family boosted the royal family's popularity, lifted the royal family.
Princess Diana is one of the greatest figures of modern times, and her legacy will never be forgotten.